Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Blue Eye Samurai series premiere. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously this is very beautifully and stunningly animated, and it's so neat to see how bloody this can get later on, especially with that dojo fight later on. I'm jumping ahead a lot, I'm sorry, but I just want to talk about it since it's fresh in my mind. I mean, that sequence is just so beautifully animated and it's just so stylized, like the teeth are falling and spinning the blade, it's turning midair, you grab it and you like whack the teeth. One goes in one guy's eye, the other one goes through the doors and ends up getting stuck in the wood. It's just beautiful. Obviously at the heart of this, it is a revenge story. It's not a one-to-one, so do forgive me for pulling all these examples out of my head, but it kind of just makes me feel a little Kill Bill-ish, a little Samurai Jack. There was another example I was thinking of that it kind of made me feel, and I just can't quite put. I mean, once again, it's weird to kind of pull, but I think because of the not mythology, but just kind of the era and stuff like that, and it being animated, but it kind of made me think of Kubo, but obviously that's stop motion, but there's so many things I'm kind of pulling from, but it definitely gives me like Samurai Jack, just kind of like an even darker Samurai Jack type of thing. Oh, the other thing I was thinking of was Mulan. Definitely got Mulan vibes, so. But it's interesting, though, like, obviously, the opening kind of tells you this is Japan after they've closed their borders to the entire world, and our main character is half Japanese, half white, and they've been discriminated their entire life because of it, because of the blue eyes. Wearing those specific shades to kind of distort the coloration of their eyes so people can't immediately. But obviously, it's not perfect because even through the shading, it's all about angles. That's why the character, like the samurai, always like keeps their eyes down or her eyes down. Let's kind of jump to, because I already went into this knowing about this. I don't think the trailer gave it away. I think it was just me just reading about the show on my own, find out, because the samurai is voiced by Maya Erskine, I'm probably butchering her name. I've only seen like maybe one or two episodes a while back, but I know she was one of the main people. She started and was also one of the main creative forces and writers for the show Pin 15. So that's the thing I kind of best know her for. But the wandering samurai and the guy that she's dealing with ahead of time, I thought was kind of an interesting conversation about the fact that he has a gun, and it's like, right, it looks American, and I mean not American, geez, European, and I think that's so interesting because it's like I would want nothing to do with kind of that monstrosity because of like the self-hatred that she has for herself as a byproduct of not only her father, but his cronies and the people he's with. We'll kind of get into that a little bit later on, but I think anything associated with Europe probably rubs her the wrong way because it's what's led to her being like ostracized her entire life, hiding away and having kids pick on her. Like there's even to the point, like as a full-grown adult, she's walking by and some kids in the town kind of pick up like rocks and start to throw at her until she turns and looks and they kind of got freaked out because of her blue eyes, because of being part like white. She is considered like monstrous or demonic. There's even this crazy transition later on when she's telling her story to the sword maker, and like when it like how it's stylized from that art style when she was talking about the demonic, the four people that are responsible for her mom's situation, and how it like and she like when it was showing like her mom's belly getting big and her being born, basically her face took on the form of like an oni, you know. Or Oni or Akuma, and it was just kind of like, ooh, I just like how that transition and then it fades away and kind of just shows her face at that time. I just thought was interesting. But yeah, like her not even killing home dude and just going for his fingers. I mean, I guess it's like, right, you'll never be able to hold a gun again. Because she took out the fingers, like, I think he still had his trigger finger. Maybe, because I know she cut off like 2 fingers at first, but then cut off more, so maybe they were fingers from the other hand, making sure that he could never like hold a sword or maybe that's kind of the best dishonor I can leave with you, that you never kind of be able to properly wield another weapon again. I mean, first and foremost, ended up smashing the gun to pieces. But it's like, yeah, he's there bragging about the women he's got, and it's like, yeah, he come and as the samurai said, it's like you come to this, you go to every new town and you buy up women, a daughter in every town, and end up selling them to a brothel for a hefty fee. So ends up learning the name of the next target because it's one target leading to another, seems to be the pace of this story. But at least this target, I can only, well, I mean, it's like video game progression where it's just going to be like boss fight to boss fight. You got to go to their territories and kind of face off against their horde of men, and then you eventually get to them. You got to deal with the scrubs, you got to deal with the mob first, and then you get to the boss. I guess a more recent example, obviously it's not fully like samurai orientated, but I'm like, even video game wise, I guess the closest comparison would be like Shifu. Because that immediately came to my mind, because that's a martial arts, revenge story. So, but what I was kind of surprised by is when Ringo started following her. It wasn't until he picked up his stuff, he was packing stuff, I was like, wait, does he not have fingers? It's like, no, he just doesn't have. Well, it doesn't seem like he has hands at all. Which he's voiced by, is it Masai Oka, I believe? Yeah. Obviously best know him as Hero from Heroes. He's also, it's been a hot minute since I saw, but I'd probably say the most recent thing was like Hawaii Five-0, the like remake. He was on that for like a lot of the show's run, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, did not know that until I saw his name in the ink. I had no idea you were Ringo. It's interesting because Ringo's like, oh, like, teach me, I want to be strong like you, because, despite your disability, your deformity, you're able to be strong, which obviously the main protagonist, she did not appreciate that, because it's like, I don't, like, is it, Ringo thought he found a kindred spirit. Obviously, he seems to be kind of like a little bit of a mess. He's just kind of a fast talker, kind of a little thick-headed, but is very kind-hearted. And obviously his dad didn't treat him well, so he was kind of running away from home. And I love our hero's way of dealing with him, just tying him to a tree. But he's kind of very like happy-go-lucky. Like, I guess it's supposed to be that juxtaposition between our main protagonist and Ringo. But it's also this interesting parallel considering. I was about to say like the parallel between like, obviously we learn about our protagonists when they were young getting taken in by the sword maker and becoming their apprentice, and it's so interesting that she won't pass the same torch on to be fair, her master never taught her how to use a sword. Anytime he made someone a sword, he basically had to fill out their movements because he needed to give them a sword that reflected their movements as well as what they wanted to achieve with their swordsmanship. And so she would watch and copy and train and master the different styles. So it seems like, and which obviously helps her in the benefits because she's seen these techniques, she's learned them, she's practiced them, but also learned their flaws, So I don't know if her style in general is one specific style, or is it more of her style is anti every style, in that she makes styles specifically to counter every one of those, or maybe she made her own kind of freeform style that's meant to be able to have a counter to everything. Or I don't know. Well, because the way she was talking about it later on, it seemed like, well, this style, the Shindo style is blocked by this style. Oh, because Shindo sucks. It's trash. Oh, but this style that counters Shindo is also trash too. So I guess she just found the style that best represents her. Or maybe just like, because her style does seem freeform in her approach. Because what she does isn't traditional, like, combat with swords, because the way we've seen her utilize it in battle would not be associated in that same capacity. So it's definitely like a free-form style in particular. But like I said, I'm curious, does she pull from each of the martial arts? I mean, all the different sword styles she learned from, or is it just pure something she made up of her own? But obviously, it's that beginning stage of like, you are on your warpath and you don't care about anything and anyone else. So to get inside the town, she bribed her way in. Didn't bother, like, because that family, it's like, oh, you can't go in because your pass is invalid. Plus your husband's not around, and you have to be escorted by a male. So the character could have played that role there, but it's like, no, I've got my own mission. I can't get caught up in your sad drama. I've got my own shit I got to deal with. So I love later on that when she ends up stopping by the brothel because she's looking for the dojo, that it's like, oh, the ladies try to bring her in, but she's like, no. And she's very, because it's like, yeah, they were reaching for certain areas. It's like, I don't need you knowing what my situation is. But Ringo's obviously there. Like, I don't know if Ringo just happened to be there, and that's why, like, maybe Ringo was trying to hide following her and ended up kind of breaking something because she turns and sees Ringo there, and then pays for him, like, having 3 or so nights at the brothel, and the whole him being taught, oh, women's boobs are like peaches or butts. I was really curious, like, what the tie-in would be between that, because we had that moment between, like, when Princess Akemi's going by, which she's voiced by Brenda Song, which I was like, oh, that's so dope. Obviously, thing I best know her from, even though it's been years, it's still London from the Zack and Cody shows. So it's just like, oh, dude. I think that's my first association with her. But either way, I was curious whether those storylines, like, how they would end up connecting, because it's like, well, our protagonist ends up meeting, well, like, they lock eyes, and I don't know if that's going to turn into something more like, I mean, they're both trying to find an escape. Well, she's seeking revenge. Akemi's trying to get out of, right, being just a possession of her dad's, to kind of, it's like, right, you have to go marry someone. That's kind of your role in this family. Like, oh, your little brother will eventually grow up and become the one who kind of leads, will kind of fill in for me, when he gets old enough. Which I'm curious, is it going to be a situation of they have 2 different moms? And I wonder if either their moms are in the picture, because that never came up. We see, like, someone that's kind of serving and looking after the child, but we don't see, like, a mother in either capacity. So either her mom died, and I can only assume, it just feels like it's going to be one of those type of situations where it's like they both have different mothers, and both of them might be going, or maybe they have the same mother, but their mom is going, so she kind of has to stick up for herself. And it's like, right, and especially in this time frame and this part of the culture at this time frame, that makes it so you can't really stay, it's like, because her dad's basically like, hey, what would you rather be? Would you rather be a wife, or would you rather be someone's whore? Because you basically would end up getting sold at a brothel, and basically he'll get to you that way, like the person that I'm trying to get you married off to. So, and she had to play her dad like a fiddle, being like, well, what about, it's like, I didn't want to be too far away from you, father. And he's like, oh, I forgot, you're a girl. I forgot how so simple you can be. So it's like, right, oh, there is a nearby warrior that what was his name? The person she was talking to was like Seke. It's like, he told me about this warrior Taigen and how good he is, and he's won 24 bouts, and he's a good swordsman, and he's never lost, which I didn't realize. Really quickly, I said Saiki. I don't know if it's like Sakai or Saki. Like, is George Takei or Takai? I always go back and forth about that. But yeah. She had to kind of play her dad like a fiddle, but it seemed like, oh, it's kind of sweet, a secret love, almost a Romeo and Juliet of it all. But then we find out Taigen's actually a complete and utter douchebag, because he's playing Akemi, trying to get close to her in the prestige and stuff like that, fiddling with her heart. It's like, damn, dude. I thought, like I said, I thought that was just going to be the storyline of like, oh, unrequited love. But that's why I'm wondering, like, is that where our main protagonist, our swordsman, comes into play? Is that what that story is going to be? Is it going to be kind of like a reference before, like the Mulan of it? Like, is it going to be kind of a twist on that, where it's like, will they become a thing? Is that what that's going to set up? Because it did seem like our hero, she did seem captivated by Akemi. So I don't know if that's the direction that's going to go. Maybe they covered in the trailers, but it's like I try to avoid watching trailers too many times. So I watched it like once a while ago. So I don't really remember off the top of my head, and I kind of don't want to remember, so. But I thought it was such an interesting reveal when we find out Taigen is the same boy that was bullying her all those years ago and threatening to kill. Like, I mean, he literally picked up a rock and was ready to bash her head because him and the other kids were like, "Oh yeah, let's get you near this cliff. Like, go ahead, you'd be better off." Because he's the one throwing it in her face. Like, "Oh yeah, your mom like hooked up with a white devil and ended up killing herself in the process." It's like, well, now because of what our hero told the swords maker, it makes you go like, well, was it just because like, oh, like, trying to make it seem like, because it's a combination of the shame she had to deal with, like from a societal standpoint, but it also seems like it wasn't like, because I was wondering like, could it have been a love situation? It's like, no, it was not a consensual situation. And so that's why I think also she's not sure which one of them. She knows it's 4 white guys that were here. She doesn't know which one of them's her father. They're all just as responsible. So she's gunning for all of them. That's our 4 big bads our 4 main bosses that she's going for, essentially. But I do like that she was able to kind of come back against Taigen all these years. And it's like, oh, look at you kind of working your way up. And they kind of bout it out. They kind of had like that typical swordsman fight thing where it's just like, right, where opponents staring each other down, looking at each and they're kind of envisioning the fight. Like, oh, like I think they kept envisioning both of them striking each other down. I thought it was kind of a situation of because she was going easy on Taigen, because at one point she slices his neck, but because she wasn't trying to kill him, even though she has like every right to because of their past. Like but I guess it's like it's going to cause more issues than anything else. I don't need I can make mincemeat of every like student there at that dojo, sure, but I'm not killing them. I'm using wooden swords. I'm like embarrassing them, but I'm not killing them. And so, but Taigen kind of gets the better because it felt like she was kind of holding back. But then she goes full, Goku or, no, I guess Rock Lee would be more appropriate to say, like dropping the weights. Because she's been carrying them the entire time. I was like, that's actually pretty dope. It's like, right, that's how you keep you build up your muscles and your stamina. And then also it's like, you definitely can easily see how much faster she is without those weights on. And it's like, yeah, you got a good cut on me, but that's because I had these weights slowing me down. Like, let me show you. I mean, that movement, like once again, animation wise, was so beautiful when she kind of like knocked him in the air and he's like rolling midair and he lands and she's got the blade to his throat and turns it towards the bottom blade, so like he's ready to slice his throat, and Mom was like, oh, that was just so beautifully executed. I'm curious what that was specifically about. I guess like when she kind of picks up the snow and kind of rubs it in her eyes. I guess it was maybe to kind of help focus her eyes more, of just kind of maybe keeping her eyes open for so long, kind of like dry them out. And maybe that was her way to kind of moisturize her eyes because of the cold. And maybe it's just also a thing of by putting the cold on your eyes again, it's like, maybe it's kind of like helping you refocus, but also it's just like, right, it kind of helps block, because she's about to move faster, so maybe it's meant to kind of, in a weird way, put up like some kind of wind resistance, because at the point she doesn't have her glasses on at this point because they got knocked off because of the initial tussle with Taigen. Which she ends up leaving him shameful because he like runs his mouth at the last minute being like, yeah, you're still nothing more than a doll. And that movement of just like sliding like the blade and it's coming like halfway unsheathed, and it turns out she cut off his bun, which I guess like at this time in this era was like the biggest shame you could bring someone, because everyone from the dojo just turns and leaves. I guess it's just like there's no getting your shame back, your pride back, because he'd always been undefeated at that point in time, so he was kind of like the champion, and so she like embarrassed him. And so I guess it's not only he got beat, it's also like he got his bun cut, which is like extra shameful. And so just everyone turns their back and walks away from him. When like everyone else, there are people in that crowd who look worse than him, like banged up wise, but it's still like shame on you for not only losing, but like having your bun cut. Now it's like you're that much of an embarrassment. So how that plays out with the Akemi of it all, it probably ruins it, because like her father's definitely not going to agree with him, like now finding out he lost, and now like the shame he's been brought upon the dojo and himself, so that's not going to work. But maybe she'll also find out how much of a garbage piece of shit he is too. So, but yeah, this was all about she was trying to meet with the master of the dojo simply to find his brother, because he's the next step in on, because he's the one that gave Home Dude, who lost his fingers at the beginning, the European gun, and it's like, right, she must know that they're still somewhere in this country, which I guess speaks volumes as like, right, they're supposed to have like cut off the borders to the outside world, but how are these guys still here? Just, I guess, shows how powerful they are and the connections they have in Japan that allow them to stay here. I mean, I'd assume it's all of them here, but maybe we hear one person talking later, so that our villains are talking to. So I'm assuming he's he's one of the four definitely, but I'm curious, are the other three here, or would they come back because of him? Because he's the one kind of saying like, hey, we'll deal with this warrior. Let's send essentially like the four horsemen after their hired warriors to take down our blue-eyed samurai. Obviously, that's all me mainly focusing on present day. There is like the past stuff of just our samurai when she was younger, like being taken in by the sword master who is blind. It is the one person that can't see. But even if they can see, eventually learning the truth about it. There was that kind of thing of like, yes, I know you're ugly. I don't need to be. I already know you're ugly. But it's like, no, I'm a monster because of my DNA, because of what I'm like part white. Which I also the sword maker is voiced by Hiroyuki Tagawa. God, I want to say him as Shao Kahn is the first. I think that's the first, like in the live action Mortal Kombat movie from the 90s. I want to say that's my main. That might be the first thing I ever saw him in. But he's one of those actors where like you see him like pop up all the time. I swear there was like a TV show or something fairly recently I'd seen him in, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember what it was. I felt like it was something maybe it might have even been a movie, but there was something I'd seen him in recently, I feel like, but I just don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But either way, it's just like kind of that once again, that Shifu type of, well, no, because it's Sensei, because I have to correct myself, because like, right, Shifu is Chinese, Sensei is Japanese. But the sword maker ended up, training our hero, and just the repeated process of just kind of your typical kind of almost like, oh, I got to smack you every time you get stuff wrong. You got to get the rhythm right. And it's so interesting. And I think that's supposed to be the point of like how you make a blade, and how it compares to our protagonist, the parallels of like the purity and the impurities. Because you don't want to get rid of all the impurities, because keeping like some of the impurity adds an element to the blade. And it's like our protagonist had to make 1,000 knives, and then we can go about, you potentially making a blade. And also like the meteorite of metal that the sword maker wanted to use, but never could crack it. And I love that the sword wasn't one, because even Taigen was like, whoa, you have a what's it, Master edgy sword, and our Blue-Eyed Samurai just smiled, which I thought was kind of interesting, because we find out the sword's maker never forged that sword for her. She forged it herself, because he never knew that she did that. I guess she waited till he was gone, because he even made the point that every metal wants to be forged into a sword, and she made one of her own. And I love that how she made him realize that was like she took out the blade and she hit it against the floor, and he heard the reverberation of the steel and of the metal, and it kind of made him go like, I thought that was kind of beautiful. Because even they had their complicated relationship, because like, right, it's like, right, you can train at night and just continue to be my apprentice during the day. But when it's time for her to go off to her revenge, it's like, yeah, I told you my story. I'm ready now. But he's like, no, you just go off and get killed. Don't do this. Like, but for her, it's like, I am ready. Whether I see this through or whether I die, either way, I'm going forward with this. Because for him, it's just like revenge is something essentially you'll never get rid of. It'll always be there grinding away at you. It is that complicated thing with revenge. Like once you get it, it will leave you hollow. Like it is like the only thing keeping her going. So, But the fact is that she was like, I have another lie to tell you. He's like, no, 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 we'll leave it at that. You came here a lost boy, then you shall leave as a lost man. I guess it's just a. I don't know if he was saying that because it's like, I want to know you this way. And maybe there is a little dishonor in the fact is that her being a woman, like maybe there's an element of that. I don't know. Or maybe that's just kind of like, I will picture you this way because that's who you need to be on this journey. Because if people find out the truth about you, not only because of the blue eye thing, you also being a woman, which makes me even wonder, did even Tigan know about that? Probably not. Because I'm sure that'd be, even more shameful. Not only did you get beat by uh, something impure, you also got beat by a woman. So that's going to rub salt. So I don't think Tigan knows. I mean, by the end of the episode, the only person who, well, the sword maker knows, just didn't want to acknowledge it, didn't want to say it out loud. But Ringo now knows at the end, which I love the whole, like, once he sees her naked, oh, Peaches, so. A great introduction, great setup. I'm excited to continue with the show and see where everything takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.